In today's video, we're going to continue talking about circumference. We are first going to finish the investigation from yesterday, and then we'll do some notes on how to actually use the formula. So in class, we looked at some data as a whole group and found the average. In your value of pi, you should have it listed as 3.14 as the actual approximation for that value. Okay, then we're going to revisit the formula that shows what pi is equal to. So remember we talked about Archimedes and how he used the letter pi from the Greek alphabet to represent the ratio of circumference divided by diameter. We're going to take that ratio that he set up and solve for circumference so that we can use that formula moving forward. To solve for circumference, we need to undo division by the diameter, and so we need to multiply by diameter on both sides. So we're going to fill in times diameter, once on the left, once on the right. If we take circumference and divide it by the diameter, but then multiply it by the diameter, that's going to cancel out and we'll just be left with circumference. Then on the right-hand side, we'll have pi times diameter. So circumference is equal to pi times diameter. That is one of your two formulas for circumference of a circle. We have what is a formula that will also find circumference, one that's using radius. If you remember from our definitions, radius is halfway all the way across a circle, diameter is all the way across. So if I use my formula for diameter, I could say diameter equals 2 times radius. Okay, and then I can replace diameter with 2r. So I'm just going to substitute 2r in place of where you see diameter. That means my new formula will be circumference equals pi times 2 times r. And typically we would rewrite that with the 2 first as our coefficient. And so that would be circumference equals 2 times pi times radius. So you now have two different formulas to use for circumference. One of them uses diameter, one of them uses radius. So let's summarize. Value of pi rounded to the hundredths place is 3.14. There are more digits, but that's just rounded to the hundredths place. And then our two formulas, you can either say circumference equals pi times diameter, or circumference equals 2 times pi times radius. Both of those will work to help you find circumference. Okay, all of 117 and 118 should now be filled in. You can keep that for now. And then you're going to use a piece of notebook paper to take notes for the next part. So we're going to switch assignments and do notes for circumference. Okay, you do not need to copy down everything that's on this screen. It's just summarizing what we've already talked about, so just watch and listen. Circle, definition for that is a set of all points in a plane that are the same distance from a point called the center. Radius is going to be halfway, so from the center to any point on the circle. Diameter is going to be all the way across through the center. When we're looking at diameter, that would be 2 times the radius. And when we're looking at radius, that would be half of the diameter. So again, you don't need to copy all of this down. We're just going to talk through it. You already have all of the definitions in your notes that we did earlier. Okay, let's use that to work out some examples. For part A, it says the diameter is 20 feet, find the radius. You're gonna have some problems in today's assignment where it'll say, what's the radius, what's the diameter? So diameter, they gave us, we can just say D equals 20 feet. I would suggest sketching out the circle just so that you've got an image to go along with what the measurements are. Then the radius is going to be halfway across, so that would be 10 feet, right? 20 divided by 2 would just be 10. So if it's just asking for diameter and radius, that's all you need to do. Take a moment, see if you can figure out radius and diameter for part B. Okay, now that you've had a chance to try that, they gave us the radius, so that would be 7 meters. And the diameter is just going to be twice as big, which would be 14 meters. And you'll make sure to include units with each of those measurements. So just look at the circle and either double the number they give you or do half of it based on what they give you and what they ask you. Okay, next up, distance around a circle is called the circumference. The ratio of circumference divided by diameter is the same for every single circle, no matter what, and it's represented with the Greek letter pi. You can use 3.14, or if you want it in fraction form, 22/7 is pretty close to that same value. Okay, this is the part that I would like for you to write down. So you're going to say pi is equal to circumference divided by diameter. And then I've got Albert Einstein there. We know that Archimedes came up with the relationship of pi. However, in a movie called Night at the Museum, these Albert Einstein bobbleheads gave a passcode which saved the day when they had to type it into the tablet so that the museum could be saved. And so this was the image that they used to represent that. I would suggest maybe writing down the first 10 digits of pi just so that you've got them, but recognize that it continues on and on and on forever. It's not going to repeat. I know that there's a spot where it has 2 3s in a row. It's not going to repeat any more than that, and it's going to look kind of random. Because this is an irrational number. So pi is circumference divided by diameter, and the first 10 digits, 3.1415925, and that's what they used for the passcode at Night at the Museum. Okay, 2 formulas. Circumference is 2 times pi times radius, or pi times diameter. You'll want to make sure that you list both of those formulas because we'll be using them both. Also, circumference is measured in linear units, which would be just regular old feet, regular old inches, yards, centimeters, whatever it might be. Okay, and then one more place where we summarize all of that. You've got your picture that shows circumference all the way around, diameter all the way across, and then radius halfway across, along with your 2 formulas. Assuming you've already jotted down your formulas, you don't need to copy down anything new on this slide. Okay, we are ready to start using this. Find the circumference of the frisbee, the flying disc, and it tells us to use 3.14 for pi. Okay, anytime we are using a formula for geometry or within this unit, we're going to follow a 4-step process. Step 1 is going to be to copy the formula. They gave us the radius, and you'll sketch this out on your paper, just a circle with the radius labeled 5 inches. Step 1 is that we are going to copy the formula. So I'm going to use circumference equals 2 times pi times radius. Okay, these types of problems will be worth 4 points. You'll get 1 point for each step. So step 1, copy the formula. Step 2, we are going to substitute in all of the values that we can. So we don't know the circumference, that'll just stay C. 2 is just 2. And then in place of pi, we're going to replace that with 3.14. And in place of r, we're going to substitute that with the radius, which is 5. Okay, so step 1, copy the formula. Step 2, plug in all of your measurements. Step 3, we are going to get our answer. We're actually going to do all the calculations. We can multiply in any order. So I'm going to do 2 times 5 is 10. And then 3.14 times 10 would end up at 31.4. So circumference would be 31.4. And the last step is to include units. And I see inches right here. So I'm going to put inches for my units and that's going to be step 4. Okay, that's what I'm looking for each time you do a problem on a homework assignment or a test or a quiz, that you include your 4 steps. Okay, next example, this time they gave the diameter, and I can tell because 14 feet is centered across that line that's drawn. We'll follow those same 4 steps. Because they gave us the diameter, I'm going to use the formula that uses diameter in it. So step 1 is to copy our formula. Circumference equals pi times diameter. Step 2, substitute in everything that we can. So C, we don't know yet. Pi is 3.14 and diameter is 14. So 3.14 times 14. Okay, we'll work that out real quick. 3.14 times 14. And we'll do a placeholder and add them up. And then decimal is going to move over 2 places. So our circumference would be 43.96. And then last step is units, which would be feet. So that would be step 4 there. Okay, so with circles, we could also do something called semicircles. So a semicircle is just half of a circle, and we can still find the perimeter of that. So it says the straight side is 6 meters long, the distance around the curved part is 1/2 the circumference, and they gave us a diameter that's labeled there. So we're going to piece together a formula for a semicircle. So I'm going to use P, since it's no longer a full circle, we're going to use P for perimeter. And then I'm just going to draw a little semicircle here. Okay, so perimeter of a semicircle. So we're going to start with a full circle. So I'm going to do pi times diameter. Okay, that would be all the way around the circle. And since I only want half of that, I'm going to divide it by 2. So that means that I would erase this part, and just that black line would represent pi times diameter divided by 2. Now, if this is a field with animals in it or a yard or something like that, and we want to make sure that they don't get loose, we also need to include this straight side here, and that distance is just going to be the diameter. So we'll do plus the diameter. So if I color code it, pi times diameter divided by 2 is this curved part, and then plus the diameter would just be that straight line all the way across. Okay, that's step 1. We copied down the formula. That'll be a formula that you'll also want to have for the assignment that you'll do later today. So step 1, there's our formula. Step 2, plug in everything that we know. Pi is 3.14, diameter is 6, divided by 2, and then plus 6. Okay, you might be able to see a shortcut where you do 6 divided by 2. That is totally fine. But just so that I'm being really clear with my steps, I'm just going to work the whole thing out. So 3.14 times 6 would be 18.84. Then we're going to divide that by 2. All of those are even, so that actually makes it pretty easy to divide by 2. So that would be 9.42. Okay, and then we're going to add 6. When you add 6 to that, be sure you're lining up your decimal points. So 9.42 times 6 should not be lined up like that. This is 6 whole, so we should line it up like that and then do decimals if you need to. Okay, so that comes out to 15.42. So step 3, we found an answer. Perimeter is 15.42. And then lastly, we need to include units, which were meters. We'll put meters right there. Okay, so in this video, we reviewed what pi is equal to. We looked at how to use the formula for circumference. We also looked at how to calculate radius and diameter if you're given one or the other. So notes should all be complete on your notebook paper, and then next you're going to move on to the workbook page that goes along with this. All right, thank you for watching and good luck with circumference.